What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you 3 envelopes that I recently got back in the mail. One is actually an older envelope that I received with a different stamp on it, and I know exactly who it is because it's postmarked from St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm going to share that one with you, and it's an oversized envelope. That's another reason I know who it is. And I had all but written off this request, and it just goes to prove if you're patient, sometimes things get lost in the mail. People just don't get around to signing their mail, and about a year and a half later I got it back. So let me jump into the first one, and the first one I want to share with you is former Detroit Tiger, Chicago White Sox, among others, Bobby Molinaro, or Bob Molinaro, 1, 2, a senior league makes 3, another senior league autograph makes 4, and I actually had a minor league team set with him in it as well. So I just want to comment before I jump into his career. Look at the penmanship of his autograph. I have to say I have received a lot of autographs back in the mail in my career. Usually older players, and I'm talking players from the 1950s, 50s and up, 40s, whatever. They typically have nicer signatures than, of course, compared to today's players. Well, this, to me, is like the best penmanship I've ever seen. So when you guys agree, I mean, every single letter. I don't think I could do that even if I tried anymore. If I tried to print that nicely to try to sign my name, I don't think I could do that. So let me tell you a little bit about Bob Molinaro's baseball career. Molinaro, who was an outfielder, a left-handed hitting outfielder, grew up in New Jersey and was drafted out of high school in New Jersey in the second round by the Detroit Tigers in 1968. An 18-year-old kid, he went into the Tigers minor league system and spent from 1968 to 1975 working his way up to the major leagues until finally in 1975, at 25 years old, he got his major league call-up in September of 1975. Well, he only appeared in 6 games that year for the Tigers, and going into the 1976 season, he was again relegated to playing in the Tigers' AAA affiliate. He didn't see any time in 1976. He spent most of the 1977 season again in AAA, but he did get called up to the majors again as a September call-up with the Tigers. However, after appearing in only 4 games on September 22nd of 1977, the Chicago White Sox claimed him on waivers. Well, he had an opportunity to suit up for 1 game in 1977 for the White Sox, appearing in only 1 game for them. Well, going into the 1978 season, he made the White Sox. They claimed him off of waivers, and he appeared in 105 games for the White Sox that year, and, had a pretty decent batting average of .262. Wasn't exceptional, but wasn't horrible. Well, after appearing in 105 games with the White Sox in 78, they again, at the age of 29 years old, sent Molinaro down to AAA. Well, he would spend most of the 1979 season in AAA, but again, in August of 1979, while he was in AAA, the Baltimore Orioles claimed him off waivers and put him on their major league roster. Well, in September with Baltimore, he got to appear in 8 games, and apparently he didn't make a great impression with the Orioles because after the 79 season concluded, the Chicago White Sox claimed him back off of waivers from the Orioles. So there he was, back in the White Sox organization. So going into the 1980 season, he basically stuck the entire year with the Major League club. He didn't appear in any minor league games that season for the White Sox, but instead appeared in 119 games and would have a career year batting .291 as a very regular outfielder for the White Sox. Well, the following year wasn't as great as his 1980 season, as he only appeared in 47 games for the White Sox in 1981 and batted about .262, playing part-time. Going into the 1982 season, he was at spring training with the White Sox, and right before camp broke, he was traded to the Chicago Cubs to complete an earlier trade that was made in 1981. He was basically the player to be named later that was sent to the Cubs. Well, he started the season with the Cubs, appearing in 65 games, but Bob would have to pack his bags again by the end of 1982 because on August 31st, the Philadelphia Phillies purchased his contract and he finished the year playing for Philadelphia, appearing in 19 games. After the 1982 season, he started the season with the Phillies. However, in June, early June, he was released by the Phillies, but he was picked up by the Cincinnati Reds. Well, the Reds sent him to AAA, and he spent almost 2 months in AAA with the Reds, and they released him, and then he signed with the Detroit Tigers. Well, after he signed with the Tigers, he finished out the year with the Tigers, and then they released him from his contract in 1983. And after the 83 season, he did not play in the major leagues. However, in 1985, he resurfaced again, playing for the Baltimore Orioles AAA affiliate at the age of 35 years old. Well, after the 1985 season, Bob hung it up and he started getting into coaching. Well, as you can see from the card in the corner here, he coached for a few seasons in the minor leagues, and then he played a couple seasons in the senior league. And I'm very happy to add a couple more senior league autographs to my collection. If you guys remember, I started sending those out recently. So I want to thank Mr. Molinaro for signing those and adding a couple more senior league autographs to the collection, and definitely adding one more to my 1989 Canton team set. I think I only have like 1 or 2 cards out of that entire set signed, but very happy to add another one to the collection. Alright, so this next individual, if you know your 1970s baseball, this one may come to you as a familiar name. And this is couple more senior league cards, former Arizona State University star / #1 overall pick of the Philadelphia Phillies, Alan Bannister, on 1, 2, another senior league card, and a coaching card featured with Larry Hardy. So let me tell you a little about Alan Bannister and his career in baseball. Alan Bannister, originally from California, played his high school baseball in California and was actually selected by the California Angels in the first round, 5th overall, in the 1969 MLB amateur draft. He chose not to sign with the Angels and instead took a scholarship opportunity to play baseball at Arizona State University. Well, after he completed his time at Arizona State University, the Philadelphia Phillies in 1973 made Alan Bannister the #1 overall pick in the draft. Well, Bannister immediately was assigned to the minor leagues with the Phillies to AAA and appeared in 130 games for the Phillies. However, he struggled a little bit that first season in the minor leagues. Well, in 1974, he split time between AAA and the majors and made his major league debut in 1974, appearing in 26 games for the Phillies. Well, the following year, after that, he would spend 1975 up with the Phillies with limited playing time, only appearing in 24 games. And then, the following year, after the 75 season, was traded to the Chicago White Sox. This trade actually was how Jim Cott came to the Philadelphia Phillies from the White Sox, so he was part of the Jim Cott deal. After spending some time in 1976 in the minor leagues with the AAA affiliate of the White Sox. He was again called up to the majors with the White Sox, where he would stick. However, he never really got an opportunity to be a starter until 1977. Well, in 1977, he proved, batting .275 and hit 3 home runs. He had a very adequate season. Well, the following year, in 1978 with the White Sox, he was used in only 49 games. And in 1979, he again appeared in 136 games, primarily as a starter. However, going into the 1980 season, he went to the White Sox, started the season with the White Sox, however was traded to the Cleveland Indians midway through the season. Well, after joining the Cleveland Indians in June of 1980, he would spend 4 seasons with the Indians, playing part-time and being a starter. The most games that he appeared in was 117 with the Cleveland Indians. And after the 1983 season, the Cleveland Indians let him go to free agency, and he signed with the Houston Astros. Well, he spent some time with the Astros, not a long time with the Astros, in 1984, only appearing in 9 games before they traded him to the Texas Rangers. He played for the Texas Rangers for the rest of the 1984 season, then in 1985 would only appear in 57 games for the Rangers. Overall, in his career, he batted .270 for his career batting average and was primarily used as a backup player, kind of like a utility second baseman, shortstop, first baseman, outfielder type of player. So after his post-playing career, he decided to get into coaching, which he did, through the late 80s, early 90s. And he also had the stint in the senior league, as you can see here. I sent him a couple more senior league cards, so a couple more senior league cards added to the collection, along with the previous Bob Molinaro cards that I just showed you. So very happy to add #1 overall pick, Alan Bannister, to my collection. And very happy to add those senior league cards as well. Alright, so this next one, I had to check my notebook, and I sent these out when I started my channel back in 2018. And typically, from what my research showed me, this individual had always been a quick turnaround. And the other ironic thing is I actually live in the same state as where I sent this. So this envelope came back last week, postmarked from St. Louis, and I was like, okay, I know who that is, because there's only one person I sent to in St. Louis with this oversized envelope, and that is former St. Louis Cardinal Ricky Horton on 1, 2, a third 1987 Topps, and this is the card of why it was oversized, was a team-issued 1980s St. Louis Cardinals team photo. And I'm pretty close to having this entire set signed. There are a couple deceased individuals that I'm probably never going to be able to get signed. And I actually had one individual keep one of the cards on me out of the set as well. So if you remember, I'm not going to mention any names, but if you remember back, I did a video about a year ago, and I said that the person sent back the 3 cards that I sent, but didn't send back the oversized card, because I guess they figured they needed it in their collection more than I did. So no hard feelings, not a big deal. I only paid, I want to say like $4 for the entire set. So it's not like I had a lot of money invested, but when I shot that video, I was like, this is the rule of thumb. If there's something that you send in the mail, you may run the risk of never seeing it again. And that individual kept that card, and Mr. Horton, I thought I was writing that one off as well, because this took about 1.5 years to get back. And all the distance between me and Mr. Horton's home is about 4 hours. So it took 1.5 years to get my cards 4 hours back to me. So let me tell you a little about Ricky Horton's career. Horton grew up in New York and graduated high school from New York. And he was originally drafted by the San Francisco Giants, but chose to go to the University of Virginia instead of signing with the Giants. His time at the University of Virginia in 1980, the lefty pitcher led the Virginia Cavaliers in innings pitched, earned run average, and strikeouts. Horton was drafted in the 4th round of the 1980 amateur draft that year. He spent a couple seasons in the minor leagues, and then in 1984, his rookie season, he came up with the Cardinals. While with the Cardinals, he appeared in the 1985 World Series and the 1987 World Series. After the 1987 season, Horton was traded to the Chicago White Sox, along with Lance Johnson, L1 Dog, for starter Jose De Leon. Well, he didn't spend all but one season with the White Sox, not even an entire season, because on August 30th, 1988, Horton was traded from the White Sox to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And if anybody knows what happened in 1988 with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Mr. Horton was on the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers in 1988. Going into the 1989 season, Horton struggled a little bit with the Dodgers, and by July of that year, the Dodgers decided to release Horton from his contract. Well, Horton didn't stay unemployed long because his manager, Whitey Herzog, summoned him back to St. Louis in 1989 to return to the Cardinals as a free agent. And he struggled a little bit with the Cardinals that year in '89, and going into July of 1990, coming back that following season, his struggles continued. Well, on July 25th, 1990, Horton was released again from his contract. Well, he again was able to sign on with another organization only a couple weeks later and signed with the Milwaukee Brewers. He never appeared in a game for the Brewers at the major league level and spent some time in their AAA affiliate until the end of August when they released him again, finishing out the 1990 season. Well, Horton had one last year in him, and he signed a minor league deal at the age of 31 with the Cleveland Indians. He appeared in 47 games for the AAA and AA affiliate for the Indians and never got a call up to the major leagues. 1990 would prove to be the last season that Ricky Horton would pitch in the major leagues. Well, post-playing career, you may be familiar a little bit more with Ricky Horton in his post-playing career than you were with him in his playing career. Well, for some of the younger viewers, Ricky Horton started coaching in the Cleveland Indians organization after he finished his career with the AAA and AA affiliates of the Indians. And after he did the coaching in their farm system, he moved back to St. Louis, where he was living in the off season, and he got involved with the St. Louis chapter of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And then in 1997, he started working for Fox Sports Midwest and started filling in on television with Fox Sports Midwest, but also started working on the radio at KMOX in St. Louis as well. So Ricky Horton, as many of the younger viewers may know, is still one of the broadcasters for the St. Louis Cardinals. You can hear him very commonly on the radio, and you can hear him obviously during telecast on television. He also does studio work for the St. Louis Cardinals as well. Here's to thanking Mr. Horton for getting back to signing his mail. I don't know if this got lost in the shuffle or something along those lines. Maybe he packed up his mail and moved houses, since I sent to him. However, I'm very happy to get this St. Louis issued postcard back. I want to thank everybody for signing in this video. Thank you very much, Mr. Bannister, for signing for me. I appreciate that. And also thank you, Mr. Molinaro, for signing your cards for me as well. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Through the Mail Thursdays. I look forward to your comments below. Thanks.